Well, I mean, so, winning overall excellence, I'd say, first and foremost, really just a testament to our entire team. And in order to win that award, you really have to be ready 24/7. And so, there were just so many stories. I mean, certainly in Ferguson, that was a story that we covered, and there was some risk to our reporters. Jim Ryan was one of our reporters who was there, who was on the scene when there was rioting. And I think we also are proud of the fact that we, had exclusives associated with that, with the officer about the shooting. We had some investigative reporting that uncovered some of the deliberations with the grand jury. So we also tried to put it into context. So I think that story sort of represents for us the totality of what we try to do, whether it was have reporters on the scene for our radio stations, covering breaking news accurately, and also offering some context to our listeners.
That's excellent. So you mentioned your coverage of Ferguson. How does ABC News Radio approach a subject that's so already widely covered? What kind of angle do you approach it to differentiate yourself from all the other news outlets?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is for us. It's always accuracy over being first. So that is something that often I think that if our listeners knew how often we withheld information that they might be hearing or reading about on social media that was not accurate, it would surprise them. So there's a lot of care that goes into ensuring that whatever we're saying we believe to be correct at the time. But we have an incredibly large news division at ABC, and so we have Pierre Thomas, who's at the Justice Department, who's able to find out what the FBI is reporting or what the Attorney General is saying, or Mary Bruce, who is at the White House, who's able to tell us what President Obama is thinking about Ferguson. But then being on the ground with our radio stations that are affiliates and finding out firsthand what is being said by those people who are upset with the course of action, and also talking to the police here. So for us, it's really the ability to sort of synthesize in a 360-degree way all aspects of the story, and I think that's what was recognized by the judges in part in the overall excellence recognition.
Definitely. That was an incredible piece, and the coverage was amazing. So this is my final question. So you've won awards for your coverage on international events like Osama bin Laden being killed and the Arab Spring, but then you've also covered a lot of local events like the Newtown school shooting. How do you approach international versus national stories differently?
It all comes down to relevance to our listeners, and so we don't have a specific quota as far as the number of stories we're going to do nationally or internationally. It really is what is going to impact our listeners' lives. What do our stations rely on us to bring to them? So, to your point about what constitutes an important story internationally, if our stations are talking about it and they want a presence there, so whether it was covering Hamas or being overseas at natural disasters, all of those things we think we need to be there, and if it rises to the level of interest of our stations, that's really primarily the criteria that we look to follow.
Great. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me.